Hey honeybees, my name is Raven, this is Jasper, and this is October, and welcome back to our channel. Subscribe to become part of the hive. Be sure to like and ring the notification bell. Thanks honeybees! Enjoy the video. Meow! Hey, someone's antsy today. Give me a kiss first. Give me a kiss. I love you. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about I really wanted to talk about the movie Barbarian. I saw it a few days ago. Oh, there's a cat on my leg. I thought it was really, really good. I thought, wow, I could talk about this. I could give all my opinions and just kind of do a really great review on that. And then the next day, I saw Pinocchio on Disney Plus. And going into it, I thought, oh, great, like this movie probably isn't going to be very good. I heard it wasn't very good. So I could review both, and that would be a cool video. One good movie, Barbarian, and one bad movie, Pinocchio. And that would be a grateful video in and of itself. And then I saw Pinocchio. And I thought, this has to be its own video. It's just I just got too much to say about it. It's gonna be too long if I try to combine it with Barbarian. That can have another video later. Plus, I just went to Disneyland yesterday, so I'm kind of in the Disney mood right now, and I thought, what better way to ride that high than to criticize yet another one of their pointless remakes. I think I'd just like to start by saying I don't really understand what's happening with this whole Pinocchio Renaissance. Like, I get that, like, the older Disney film, I mean all Disney films, the older ones specifically, are kind of beloved and timeless, I guess you could say. So it's not like I'm surprised that a movie like this is loved and still loved to this day. I mean, you got Snow White, Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, all those like classics that, I mean, I still watch them, I still like them. I'm just wondering why there's so many new Pinocchio movies coming out like this year or in the past 2 years, because Pinocchio's been remade before. My favorite version is called The Adventures of Pinocchio, which is a live action with a real wooden puppet being Pinocchio. It's not really Pinocchio, but like it's not a Disney version, I mean, but it's that story, and I really like that version. It's probably my favorite version. Granted, I haven't seen the original in a really long time, but anyway, so it's not new that Pinocchio is being remade. Just like it's not when the Beauty and the Beast remake came out. That wasn't new. The story of Beauty and the Beast has been remade a bunch of different times in a bunch of different ways. I just talked about the movie Belle earlier this year and how that was really good, and that's like a modernization based off of Beauty and the Beast. And of course you got Beastly, you got, I mean, every other, so many. And so with Pinocchio, there's already a lot. And then this year / last year alone, there's been like at least 3, maybe 4. There was the one that was also animated that I think came out this year. It might have been the tail end of last year, where Pauly Shore voices Pinocchio, so that was weird. But also Tom Kenny voiced Geppetto, and he did a good job. But like the weirdest part was Pauly Shore's Pinocchio, and other weird stuff about that too. They tried to be the true story of Pinocchio, but we're not talking about that. Then, of course, there's this one that just premiered on Disney Plus, which is the true Disney remake of Pinocchio. Fuck all those other ones, I guess. They don't exist. Only Disney can make these movies, and they're gonna make one, damn it, despite all the Pinocchio ones that are coming out. I don't know if they just had very high hopes for this one, that this one was gonna outshine all the other ones, especially amidst the Guillermo del Toro Pinocchio that isn't out yet, but is coming out soon. I believe that's coming out in October. As of filming this, it's still September. So I have high hopes for that one. I love Guillermo del Toro, even though I hated Nightmare Alley, but we don't have to talk about that. So it's interesting to me that this got released at this time. Tom Hanks is in it. Tom Hanks is in so many things, not just these days, just his whole career, I guess. He's always in stuff. I think I've just been noticing it recently because I happen to have seen a lot of the movies he's in. Like this one, Elvis, which I also really liked. I see him everywhere. So, and I think, Tom, I'm sure they gave you a bunch of money for this. He's Geppetto, by the way, and pretty much like the main human in the film. I mean, there's other humans, but Pinocchio is CGI, of course, but we'll get into that. And I thought, you know, Tom Hanks, I'm sure they gave you a bunch of money, but I'm also sure you have enough money and you have enough projects lined up. Maybe he thought it was going to be good, you know, playing a classic character in a Disney film. He's been in Disney films before, Pixar, you know, Toy Story. But, you know, whatever, take all the projects you want, you know, don't let me judge. He was definitely, like, probably the best actor in the movie. The character was questionable. And let me just say, disclaimer, yes, I have not seen the original Pinocchio in a while. I started it a while back. I'm going through all the Disney movies kind of over the past year, really, just kind of slowly. And one of them that me and my boyfriend watched was Pinocchio. I did fall asleep, not because of the story, but because I was tired that day. So I didn't finish it. I remember the story, and I thought I was going to rewatch it for this video, but I'm kind of, after watching the Pinocchio remake, I'm kind of sick of Pinocchio content. And basically everything that happens in the original happens in this one. And I don't really want to talk about it in a comparative way, like everyone kind of did with the Lion King remake. They compared it to the old Lion King, because obviously it didn't stand as its own movie in any way. They had to compare it just to like see how extra bad it was. But it was bad even without the comparison. So with Pinocchio, I just kind of want to talk about it as its own movie. When you remake a movie or reboot a movie or anything like that, or even like base it off of something else, you want that movie to stand on its own. I know why Disney does this, because they're relying on the nostalgia that you've seen the past movie and you want to see a new modern version of it, I guess, but I think that's why they fail, because those movies don't stand on their own. The only reason people watch it is because of the nostalgia. It has nothing new to offer. It's just the exact same movie. It just looks different and is worse. So I'm mostly just going to talk about it as how it fails as a movie on its own. And how the original concepts of Pinocchio no longer make sense in the context they put it in. I mean, not that it ever made sense in the first place, but you'll get what I mean. No longer make sense, or I can suspend my disbelief in how they chose to portray the movie. It just seems even more ridiculous and nonsensical than the story actually is. So, like I said, Tom Hanks is Geppetto. We open with him. He's building Pinocchio, who looks exactly like the animated version, just CGI. They didn't even make a real Pinocchio out of real wood. It's all CGI, which they could have done in The Adventures of Pinocchio. He was actually a wooden puppet. There was some CGI to make him like move around and talk, of course, but it was an actual wooden puppet. And other Pinocchio remakes have done that as well. Or just have a kid play him and make him look like a puppet. I don't know. But they went with CGI. Obviously, what else does Disney have but lots and lots of CGI? CGI artists don't want to pay anybody else. So anyway, he's building, he's just finishing up, and he's like singing him a song or whatever. And let me just say, like, the songs in this movie, like, they have some of the same ones. I think they added some new ones. But regardless, all the music just seems like so out of place. Tom Hanks is not a singer. I mean, it's not that he's like a bad singer, but it just felt awkward having him sing to this puppet. So it was, I don't know. It was just, I was feeling weird from the opening scene already. And then he has his cat and his fish, which were Figaro, the black and white little kitten, and Cleo, the goldfish. Again, don't want to always compare to the original, but everything I'm talking about is also in the original. I'm sure everybody has seen Pinocchio at this point, except for when I specifically mentioned that of what they changed. And Figaro and Cleo are both CGI, which annoyed me because you can get a real kitten and a real goldfish. What does the goldfish do in this movie that a real goldfish can't do? They just get shots of her. I guess just like the eyes being wide and looking aware. Like if you got a real goldfish, you would just get the same look. But was that really important? I don't think it was. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Whatever about Cleo. But Figaro, the cat, is in a lot of scenes. Like all the scenes with Geppetto. Geppetto interacts with Figaro a lot. and it looks so bad. I mean, it's obviously a CGI kitten. It does not look realistic at all. They tried, but they didn't try hard enough. And there's a scene where Geppetto, like, in the beginning, Geppetto, like, picks up Figaro, pets him, and then, like, puts him on the counter. And it's obvious that they just had Tom Hanks grab a stuffed cat, pet it, and then put it down, because the way his hand looks is animated so poorly. It just looks so bad. And you could get, I understand that, like, there's certain, like, choreography, I guess, for Figaro. He has to climb up the stairs, and you want him to meow and to stand upright for a second and to sniff. If you film a real kitten long enough, they'll do whatever you want them to do. I mean, just even the laziest, he doesn't even have to be on the set. Film a kitten in front of a green screen, play with it with green screen toys, whatever. You'll get the shots that you want. But that's a lot of effort, and you gotta find a cat, and you gotta pay the cat wrangler or whatever. So just CGI it and make it look terrible, just to annoy Raven. That's the problem. That's the problem I had with Cruella as well. And I didn't dislike Cruella. I kind of liked Cruella. I like Emma Stone. The movie was okay. Don't remember too much about it. I love the costumes. But the Dalmatians, and obviously, like, the Dalmatians are a very important part of Cruella's story, even though that was a prequel. You had to have that in there because that's, like, the whole connective tissue, you know what I mean? And they had Dalmatians, and they were CGI. But they didn't do anything that a normal dog can't be trained to do. And I know that because my day job is as a dog trainer. I know that you can train dogs to do lots of different stuff. Just give them a treat and they'll do it. Practice a few times, give them treats, they'll do it. And there was 2 other little dogs in that movie that did do some complicated stuff, but again, you can train a dog to do anything. I mean, within reason, of course. But it was nothing outside the world of a dog's capabilities, is what I'm trying to say. And the Dalmatians in that movie specifically, all they had to do, they were in the movie, the context of the movie, they were trained by the lady that Cruella was beefing with. They were trained to attack on her command. Like, she blew a whistle or something, and then they just, like, charged at whatever she wanted them to. You can do that in real life. You can do that. You can say, give a word or blow a whistle and make dogs run at something. You can do that. But enough about Cruella. Sidetrack, sorry. Figaro looks bad. As cute as the little meow sound effects were, it was bad. I was like, my cat could play this role. Okay, so that was bad. The Pinocchio looks bad. They didn't try to make it different at all. I mean, why would they? You know, we gotta make Pinocchio look exactly like Pinocchio. Even though in the context of, like, in the context of a cartoon, I'm sure he looked like a real boy puppet would. Like, Geppetto tried to make him look realistic in that animated context, where, like, that's what that boy would look like in that style of animation. So when you move something to live action, like, Geppetto is a real man played by Tom Hanks, and Geppetto in the cartoon, you know, he's got, like, the big nose and the big eyes, animated features. Like, he looks like the human version of that wooden puppet. You know what I mean? But Tom Hanks being a real person, making a wooden puppet with exaggerated features that you would see in a cartoon didn't really make sense at all. It's like, why would you give him this huge head and these big eyes and these weird proportions if you're trying to make him look like your real son? Because that's the whole point, right? Is Geppetto wants a son, so he makes one out of wood. Why would you make a son that didn't look normal if that's what you were going for? So that didn't make sense. They could have still had him look like Pinocchio with the hat and the hair and, like, the cheeks and the like the little rounded nose, and just made the proportions more realistic. But they didn't do that because he has to look exactly like he looked in the cartoon, right? Which brings me to Jiminy Cricket. I have to take a sip of cold brew for this point. I have to take a sip of cold brew for this point because it annoyed me the most, probably about over anything in this movie. So, Jiminy Cricket. Hate his design. I hate it. In the cartoon, again, I know I said I wasn't going to compare it, but I guess I am. I'm not really comparing story aspects. I'm comparing, like, look and how it makes sense in a cartoon versus doesn't make sense in a live action. Like, yeah, he looks like an animated cricket would, and that's not what a real cricket looks like. But when you like try to make things more realistic, I would think they would try to make him more like a cricket. I mean, my exact same point with Pinocchio the puppet, right? Make him more proportional and realistic as to a human, because it's not a cartoon. Even though it's mostly CGI, it's not technically supposed to be a cartoon. So the design for Jiminy, he's just CGI realism, except he's still got like the big head and an otherwise human body. Antlers, but then like the rest of his body is human. He's got little toes. We see them. He's got little fingers. The only thing crickety about him is his antenna, because his head it literally looks like a big old Brussels sprout, and it's got like weird veins in the back. It was so disturbing. I didn't like it at all. Every time Jiminy was on screen, I just had a visceral reaction. I was like, ugh, hey, what are his little veins in his head? Disgusting. And Jiminy Cricket is unfortunately voiced by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Now, I say unfortunately, not because I dislike Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but because I really like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I like him a lot. But I hated the voice for Jiminy. I didn't realize it was him at first. I didn't really look up the movie before seeing it. I was like, it's Pinocchio. I'm gonna get Pinocchio. And so when I heard Jiminy's voice, I just immediately was like, this is the worst voice acting I've ever heard in my life. What is this voice? What is this character that they're trying to do? And then I looked up the cast, like, who voices this guy, because he's terrible. And it was my boy, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And I don't really have anything else to say about that. It was terrible. It sounded like he was doing, like, a bad Mickey Mouse impression. Like, Pinocchio.
Open up, you big blubber mouth!
I'm your conscience.
Faster, Pinocchio! Faster! Spin those cloud hoppers!
He also calls him Pinocchio as a nickname for a lot of the movie. So there's a part where he's like yelling at him and he's like, Pinocchio!
Faster, Pinocchio!
So it's like a bad Mickey Mouse voice where Mickey Mouse is like, ho ho! Jiminy Cricket's like, ho ho! And it's so bad. It was so annoying. The voice was like grating on my ears. I was like, you can talk normal or do like a regular whimsical voice. Like, this is my normal voice. This is my whimsical voice. It doesn't have to be like this. So stupid. And I'm pretty sure Jiminy in the cartoon had kind of like a regular voice, just a whimsical version of it. There was no like extra voice put on it. Okay, enough of that. Okay, I don't really want to get into like what happens in Pinocchio, because it's basically what happens in Pinocchio, you know? He's a puppet, and then the blue fairy, I don't have anything really to say about it other than like the song just sounded so weird. I don't know if they like over edited it or just like added a bunch of effects to the song, but it made her voice sound bad, and it seemed like she was a good singer and it wasn't her fault. It was the after effects on her voice that made it sound terrible. So, and that's the only time we see her is in that opening scene. Not opening scene, sorry. In the scene where Pinocchio becomes real. You're supposed to see the blue fairy multiple times, but we only see her in that one, and you know, whatever, that doesn't matter. I don't care. So, you know, he becomes real, but he's still a puppet, and he wants to become a boy. A fox tricks him into joining a traveling show where he gets trapped by the guy running the show. He gets out, he meets a bunch of people and goes to Pleasure Island, where they all turn into donkeys, and then he gets rescued. And then he and his dad get eaten by a whale, and then they get out, and then at the end he turns into a real boy. That's what happens in Pinocchio. That's what happens in this version of it. They did change a few things. And, you know, normally in the Disney remakes, they do. Like, they'll add a song, or they'll add a character, or just a few little things to make it just different enough so there's a point to why they remade it. At least that's how I interpret it. It's like, how are we going to set this apart other than there are now actors, like real actors instead of just animated, even though it is mostly animated. So they add some characters. They make it new, like the old story. But they did it with Aladdin. They added a song for Jasmine, Speechless, which actually wasn't a bad song. Aladdin might be the only Disney remake that I didn't mind that much, but even then it was forgettable and I never think about it. I just saw it and I didn't hate it. I don't know if they changed anything about the new Lion King, because I only got about, you know what, they did. I do know what they changed. I did only get about halfway through because it was boring and terrible. But they took away Scar's song and just made it like a weird speech instead, which was a change for the worst because that's the best song of the Lion King. I don't know if they changed anything about the new Beauty and the Beast because I didn't watch it. Same with the Cinderella. I don't care. Dumbo, whatever. But you know, like with Aladdin, they added something. So in this movie they did add a character. Her name was Fabiana, and she was part of the traveling puppet show, and she had her own little ballerina puppet. And there was kind of like a weird, like, implied romance moment between her puppet and Pinocchio. And she controls her puppet the whole time. Pinocchio at this point, at that point in the story when we meet Fabiana, is very untrusting of humans. Everyone he's met has been mean to him or betrayed him. His school teacher was like, "You're not a real boy. I can't teach you, stupid puppet." And then the traveling puppet show guy trapped him, obviously, so he's like, I can't talk to humans, so she talks to him through her own little puppet, which is an interesting addition a little bit. I kind of liked it where it's like this was a new way of communicating to Pinocchio. It makes sense that he's untrusting of humans at this point. So I kind of liked the idea of that addition. It is kind of weird because they don't make, her puppet is also CGI. And you can there's really great puppeteers out there who can make a puppet look real with its look fluid in its movements, but they didn't do that. Why would they? Why would they want to make this movie look better? So anyway, so the way Fabiana is controlling the puppet is unrealistic to how she would actually do it. Like, her strings are attached to like the arms, but the mouth moves and the eyes move kind of on their own, and the way it moves is not really how a puppet would move. Like, they didn't really think about the mechanics. They just made it look like another real puppet. They basically animated a regular character and then put strings on it to make it look like she was doing it, which also didn't look great and didn't make sense. And it wasn't good enough for me to suspend my disbelief on it, because if it was good, then I wouldn't care. Because it's okay to like add certain things for the movie if it betters the movie, but that didn't. And Fabiana as a character, I didn't mind her. And like I said, I didn't really mind that puppet stuff. The one thing that they did change, that I know that they changed from the original as part of the story, is when Pinocchio gets out of his cage, being trapped by the puppeteer, and he finds out that lying makes his nose grow. And that's the only time we go over that. I really don't remember if the nose growing thing, if the lying and your nose growing thing really happens more than once in the original, but looking at this movie, that seems kind of weird. Like, why does he have this weird power of not being able to lie without his nose growing, and then you only talk about it once? I don't know. And he uses it to his advantage because he uses it to get the keys. So what's the lesson here? Lying is good as long as it helps you out, because that's literally what happened in that scene. He reached his nose out, got the keys, and Fabiana helped free him when, in the original story, the blue fairy frees him and gives him another chance. Do I care that they made that change? No. But it's something that I will note. It is one change that they made, one major change anyway, because otherwise you would just say this is exactly Pinocchio but worse, just like the Lion King. Who else is in this movie? Keegan-Michael Key is probably the best when it came to voice acting. He voices the fox, Honest John. And Keegan-Michael Key is a voice actor. I mean, he's an actor, but he also does a lot of voice acting. So, like, he knows how to put on that whimsical animated voice. He knows how to fit his voice to a character. And so his voice acting was the best acting in the film, in my opinion, especially compared to the abhorrent Jiminy Cricket voice.
Everybody who's anybody wants to be a somebody.
But I want to be real.
Why on earth would you want to be real when you can be famous?
But the character of Honest John, he's not I feel like he was in it more in the original story. He's in the one scene with his cat friend, and like I said, the voice acting was very good, but he's also obviously all CGI as well as his cat friend. And them walking around amongst like real school children, which is where they spot Pinocchio, is like, is this just normal for this world that there are some just humanoid animals walking around in like little outfits and stuff the size of the actual animal? So just like a little fox yay big walking around like, hey buddy, what's up? Which again, in a truly animated movie, like I don't care. You can suspend your disbelief, like this is a whimsical animated world. Like, yeah, some animals are just walking around, you know, that's just how it is. But it just was weird and awkward in this version. Especially with how they rendered the CGI. It just looks weird and off. What else? Luke Evans, who I believe played Gaston in the Beauty and the Beast remake, plays the coachman in the Pinocchio, taking all the boys to Pleasure Island, which pretty sus. And then what I wanted to talk about, speaking of voice and dialogue, is the kid who played Lampwick, which is of course Pinocchio's friend that he makes along the way to Pleasure Island, and who like he hangs out with on Pleasure Island, which this version of Pleasure Island is basically an amusement park where kids get to do things kids don't normally get to do. Like, they keep giving them root beer, which the root beer is CGI. The root beer is CGI. They didn't have a real root beer or a real drink that looked like root beer. So when the kid drinks it, it looks so bad. You can tell that it's fake. It's just animated liquid going into his face, and he's not actually drinking anything. I think even the cup is CGI. What was he holding even, where he's like pretending to drink it? He's literally like, it's so stupid. Why do you have to CGI everything that might be hard to get a good shot? I mean, I don't even, like, yeah, he probably wouldn't be able to drink it as fast as you wanted him to, so let's just CGI the whole damn cup so that we can make him drink it faster. Just speed up the part where he drinks it, and that would solve that problem if that's what the problem was. I don't know. But anyway, Lampwick has, like, the worst little boy 1940s-esque accent I've ever heard. The time period is kind of weird in Pinocchio. I'm assuming they're making it the time period of the original story. It seems like it's probably like the 40s or so, maybe even earlier, around that era. So Lampwick's voice is like a 1940s poor boy voice, and it just sounds awful. At first I thought it was like a little American kid doing a bad British boy voice, like that whole "please sir, may I have some more" type voice. But no, because I looked up the actor. His name is Llewyn Lloyd, and I found out that he is British. So I'm assuming he has a British accent. And so maybe he was just trying to do an American, like, 1940s poor voice accent, but his British accent was, like, shining through, which made it sound like a bad British accent. I don't even know how I could do it. It's like, "Hey, you!"
We gotta come back here and bust up some clacks.
"Hey, you boy over there, we're going to Pleasure Island. Don't you want to come with us?" Like that.
To hear you talk, you think something terrible is gonna happen to us.
But even worse than what I just did right now. Like, it was also so annoying. Every time he spoke, I was literally like, wow, this is bad. And I don't want to, like, rag on a child actor. I don't. But you can find a good child actor. He didn't have to do that voice. You could have just let him be like a regular British poor boy if you were trying to make him American. I don't even really know what they were trying to do. I'm confused at what they were trying to do with that character. Make him different. You can make him different so that it works with the actor that you got, because he looked the part of little poor 40s boy. He just sounded awful. Why aren't you drinking your root beer, Pinocchio? I don't know. And then I think the kind of the last stuff I want to talk about is like the ending. Again, not really going through the events of the story very much and what happens, because we all know what happens. I'm just talking the stuff that was bad. The whale, because as mentioned, Pinocchio, once he finds his father, they get eaten by a whale because Geppetto is like out on a boat and trying to find Pinocchio at Pleasure Island, even though he's already escaped. And one thing, let me just mention, one thing I don't like about the Pinocchio story in general, I don't know about like the original written book, but in the original like film and other versions, they never save the donkey children. On Pleasure Island, when everybody turns to donkey, and in this one they drink the root beer and they turn into the donkeys. And they make like CGI donkeys, but even the CGI donkeys look pretty realistic, and like it's very sad seeing the kid turn into the donkey and then freak out as the donkey and then immediately get put in a cage. And it happens to Pinocchio's friend, and it's pretty sad. He's like panicking as he's turning into a donkey, and then Pinocchio escapes. And then we never mention those donkey children. They're just enslaved donkeys for the rest of their lives. So yeah, that's what they get for yelling at their school teachers on Pleasure Island. And they have one scene where they break on Pleasure Island, just to finish my thought about that from earlier. There's a scene where they're breaking clocks, like cuckoo clocks with baseball bats. And I don't know if that's just like a thing that kids have always wanted to do, is break I get breaking things. But the other things they had on Pleasure Island, like eat as much junk food as you want and destroy the school and yell at these fake teachers that we have and stay up past your bedtime. But then there was like a room dedicated to literally just like breaking clocks with like bats and stuff. And I was like, is that a thing that kids want to do? Is that what kids wanted to do in the 40s? And I think they only did that because of all the cuckoo clocks in the beginning. Geppetto he makes clocks, and all the clocks are also CGI. We see them all go off. Each one is like a different Disney movie. There's one with like Donald Duck on it. There's one of Snow White where the Snow White comes out and a little box comes in and she gets put in it and it like goes back. It's like each little cuckoo clock is like a scene in a Disney movie, and they're all CGI. Of course, why would you pay someone to make a real intricate cuckoo clock, even though it can be done? But whatever. And so that was obviously fake and weird. But anyway, so I don't know if like that was just like a reference to that, like this represents like disobeying your parents, because clocks are associated with Geppetto, who's Pinocchio's dad, and so they made clocks be associated with parents. Or I don't know, kids hate time. Maybe if it was the bedtime reference, like, oh, I'm not gonna go to bed. Or maybe it's like kids rejecting Disney movies. I really don't know. That part didn't make sense either. Anyway, and then so those donkeys are just enslaved forever, and that's not the fault of this movie, but they could have done something. They could have changed that part since they're already changing stuff. But, you know, fuck those kids, I guess. So anyway, the whale isn't a whale. The one that they get swallowed by when they're on the ocean together. It's a sea monster, like a kaiju or something. It's got like, it's huge, obviously, but then it also has like tentacles. And like the mouth and everything isn't very whale-like. On the inside, I guess it is, because it's just like a big inside mouth of a monster. And I don't know why they had to make it a sea monster instead of a whale. I guess maybe they thought that was cool and different. Whatever. And then it's not really important what happens after that, except after they escape, Pinocchio and his dad reunite and they love each other. And sorry, I disappointed you, Dad, or whatever happens. It doesn't even matter. I already forgot. But the biggest, like, weirdest, I don't even want to say disappointment because I didn't have any expectations, but the why of this movie was that he doesn't turn into a real boy at the end. And it's Pinocchio. That's the whole point, is it not? It's implied. It's implied that he does, because at the end they're like walking off, and then I think it's like Jiminy's narration at the end where they're like, some say he did turn into a real boy.
And since then, many stories have been told about him. People say he was transformed into an honest-to-goodness real boy. Did that actually happen? Who knows?
Like, nobody knows what happened. They just, like, he lived happily ever after. Maybe as a real boy, maybe as a puppet. And as he's walking away, you can kind of see, like the wooden connective part kind of seaming together to make, like, one regular leg. Like, it's no longer made of wood, but it's still CGI. And I don't know why that choice was made. I have some theories on a logistical level, because on a story level, I don't know. I don't think it was a story decision. Because the whole thing of Pinocchio is that he turns into a real boy at the end. That's the whole thing. But on a story level, it could be like, oh, I'm gonna stretch here. I'm gonna grasp at some straws. Oh, he's happy just as he is. He accepts himself as a wooden puppet, and he could have a fulfilling life without being a real boy. You know, he's alive. He's got a consciousness. He's got the love of his father. He doesn't need to be real. He can stay wooden, accept yourself. But I think the real reason is not that. I think it's because it would have been weird to have a CGI little boy. Like, as a puppet, it's like, oh, it's a puppet. If you don't want to make him a real wooden puppet, fine. Like, he's CGI. Like, it sets him apart, like, as a puppet, because he doesn't look real. So to turn him into a boy at the end... But I guess the decision is keep him CGI and look exactly the same, but just without those, like, wooden, like, connective parts that I was talking about. Then he would look very strange. And because we saw real children all throughout the movie. And so Pinocchio becoming a real boy, he would look like one of those real, actual, live children, right? Like, he wouldn't just be a CGI kid running around amongst all these real human flesh and blood humans. So, and that would just be too weird. But also it would be pretty weird to have a CGI puppet turn into a real kid. Like, the transition of that would probably look so awkward. Of like I'm thinking like the Beauty and the Beast transition, when Beast becomes human again, and it's like a beam of light, and then suddenly there's a human hand. But again, that's all in the same style. You're not going from CGI to real. So, like, the transition from CGI to real would probably look really bad and awkward. I don't know why they would care, because everything else in this movie looks really bad and awkward. But whatever. That's like the whole big ending. I guess you don't want that part to look bad. So instead, they just took it all away. Like, do we do a CGI boy? That would be weird and wouldn't make any sense. But do we do a real kid? Who do we cast? How do we style him to make him look exactly like the CGI puppet Pinocchio? We can't, because his proportions are all out of whack, because we fucked that up too. So he's gonna have real proportions and not actually look like this Pinocchio. So, like, the transition would just be too different. And we don't want to deal with any of it, so he just doesn't turn into a real boy at the end. It's just implied that he might. And that's it. We'll see a shot of his leg slowly turning into CGI human, but that's it. And then it ends. And then you're disappointed, and you think to yourself, why did I watch that? So that's Pinocchio. The Disney Plus 2022 Pinocchio. I guess I'll come back and talk about Pinocchio again when the Guillermo del Toro one comes out, and maybe we'll do some comparisons. Maybe it's good enough so that I don't have to. Or maybe it's so good that I will have to, because why couldn't Disney be that good? So I already know that the Jiminy Cricket is going to be better, because the one in Guillermo del Toro's, I'm pretty sure is voiced by Ewan McGregor. I haven't seen the trailer for a while, but I think that's what it is. And just in the trailer, he looks much better, like that animation style. It's not live action. It's animated. I think it's stop motion. At least the part of the trailer I saw. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But the style and the art style already looks so much better. It's not just like regular ass CGI that Disney uses in all their movies nowadays. It's like it's stylized. So that's it. That's all I have to say. I give this one, not that it matters, I give this one a 1 out of 5. It wasn't quite terrible enough to give a 0.5 or a 0. It did make me pretty angry though. But for now, I'll give it a 1. I mean, you get the idea. It's bad. I don't recommend, watch the Guillermo del Toro one when it comes out. Like, I don't even know, but I'm sure it's going to be a lot better. If you're craving a Pinocchio story, you don't have to watch any of the other ones. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you all for watching. I'm really happy I got to get this rant out. It's definitely more of a rant than a review, but you know, I feel like I just had to talk about it. I had to get this off my chest. So thank you all for listening if you got this far. If you watched the movie, let me know what you think. If you didn't watch the movie, let me know what you think about my summarization of it. So, and yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Thanks for watching, honeybees. Make sure to like and subscribe.
Meow.